Welcome to Critical Role Demystified, where I dig into an episode of Critical Role and figure out what lessons we can learn from it. Before we proceed, I wanted to make a suggestion for how to improve your experience for watching Critical Role. This doesn't apply to the podcast, just to the video on demand on YouTube. One post-it. Let me just put that.
Don't do that.
Is she bleeding profusely from the shoulder?
And there we go. Trust me, you're going to want to leave that there for about another 25 episodes. That's roughly when the folks at Geek and Sundry realize that the toxicity isn't going anywhere, so they take the chat down off of the screen. Anyway, let's dig into episode 3 of the Vox Machina campaign, Strange Bedfellows. When we last left off, Grog the Barbarian was unconscious and catatonic and unresponsive, having his intelligence dropped to 0 by an intellect devourer. And we are only a few minutes into the episode, and we get one of our first lessons. The party examines Grog, and they try to figure out how to revive him. They ask about his wounds, and Matt confirms that his wounds are not the problem. His wounds would heal. Vex asks Matt if any of them have any magic that could cure Grog. And Matt turns to the party, specifically to the casters, Keyleth, Tiberius, and Scanlan, and asks, "Do you?"
Do any of us know anything about magic that could heal him? Like, any spells, any...
Do you?
Of course, Matt knows that the spell Greater Restoration would heal Grog, and he knows that he is a druid and potentially a cleric whenever she's able to rejoin the game who have the ability to cast that spell. But instead of just telling them, he lets them figure it out on their own, using the details he's already given them. And Keyleth says she does have a spell that she thinks would work, she just has to sleep before she's able to cast it. And Matt doesn't react visibly to this, he just waits to see what the party's going to do. There will be some times when the players feel like they need hints or more information, but sometimes you can simply prompt them like Matt does here. They're not confused yet, they're not stressed yet, so there's no reason to step in now and give them the solution. Not only does this help with immersion and with rewarding player agency, but it also encourages and improves their problem-solving skills. Matt doesn't simply tell them which spell they should use, so they have to look at their options, look at what's available to them, and figure it out. Because there is value in giving the players enough time to figure out the puzzles on their own, without telling them exactly what they can do that's on their character sheet to solve the problem. And for folks out there wondering why Critical Role is the way it is, and why the players are so invested, tricks like this are why. This is how it starts. Right now, all of the action and the drama and the world building is good. The investment of the players is really good. But we haven't yet hit the point where this is top tier, amazing, fantastic, no one else can do it D&D. Because as the stream goes on, the players get more and more invested through weekly play and through tricks like this. Very simple tricks to make the players take the lead a little bit more. That's how Critical Role becomes what it is, and that's how your games can begin to become a little bit more than what they started as. Anyway, back to the recap. The party interrogates the last remaining Duergar. They ask how to save Grog, and the Duergar simply says, "Bury your dead weight." But of course, they've already had the discussion we just talked about. They know they might have a solution to save Grog. So they know they don't really have to take what that Duergar is saying too seriously. But this is a really nice bit of subtle world building. It establishes how this Duergar society probably functions. The strong survive, and the weak, not so much. Bury your dead weight. The party tries to intimidate her and figure out who she works for, and this is how she responds.
"You fell, son of a slime. You've already fallen. The masters gather the sheep. You shall all be harvested for Kavarn."
The Duergar doesn't want to talk, and she has no incentive to tell the players anything. She knows they're probably going to kill her. Even if they don't, Kavarn probably will. So she doesn't share any information. Except Matt does. Matt uses this NPC to tell us a lot. We get the name Kavarn, and that he is going to lead the Duergar to retake the surface world. At least that is their plan. When asked if Kavarn made the abominations that have been attacking Craghammer, yes, she confirms that too. When asked where he is, she confirms that he is deeper in the Underdark, which they'd probably already figured that one out. They'd probably guessed that. But she won't say what Kavarn is. Matt does not want to give over that information yet. He's sitting on that for a future reveal. And maybe also so he won't scare the party into going back and bailing on the mission. Because that's still on the table. They are not that deep into the Underdark yet. Retreating is still an option. And honestly, having watched many, many hours of Critical Role, I have a feeling that if the party had been able to offer anything of substance to the Duergar, whose name they don't even get, so, they weren't exactly on fair terms with her. I think if they had actually tried to bargain with her and given her something that she could have valued, there's a chance that he would have rewarded them with more information from her. But they aren't in a good bargaining position. They've already pretty much said they're going to kill her, and even if they don't, if she ever gets back to the place that she's from, Kavarn will probably kill her. So this NPC really doesn't have to be cooperative. She only tells them enough that in her mind will scare them. She's trying to be cruel, so when asked about Lady Kima, she says that the halfling is dead, which is a lie, and the party figures out that it's a lie. She's not necessarily a reliable source of actionable information, but Matt does use this opportunity to give them a lot more info. Anyway, Vox Machina kills that Duergar because what else are they going to do? And then, of course, they loot the bodies, they take a long rest, Keyleth learns Greater Restoration, and they heal Grog. She has to roll to cure him, but for now we're going to assume that's part of the transition from Pathfinder to D&D 5th edition. That's not necessarily a house rule that will stick around, but we'll take another look in several episodes at how, once they have a better handle on the new game, they might handle a similar situation. But for now, let's just assume that that's part of the growing pains of a new edition. They follow Lady Kima's trail and they find a goblin village that has been pretty much razed to the ground, and it's filled with corpses of goblins and dwarves. Notably, each of the goblin corpses has a hole in its skull, and no brain inside. Most of the party suspects at this point that this was an attack done by a larger version of the little brain monster that attacked Grog. But Vax the Rogue, played by Liam, the person who played D&D when he was a kid, knows that there are much worse monsters out there that can suck out brains. And he theorizes that that means the small brain they fought was a scout or a pet. They eventually spy another group of Duergar moving through the tunnels with a few dwarven hostages. 3 dwarven miners that they have taken captive. Scanlan and the twins take their flying carpet, because remember, they played for like 8 levels before we saw them, so they have a flying carpet, sure. And they follow quietly. The Duergar cross this thin, creaking rope bridge to a war camp on the other side of a ravine. Scanlan goes invisible and he infiltrates the camp, which is full of Duergar, ogres, and trolls. Much like the Duergar, the ogres and the trolls have pupilless white eyes, and this seems to indicate that all of them are under some sort of influence or control. And then he watches as a tall, robed, hooded figure who is floating around the camp while this creature holds out a hand, and every Duergar looks at him at once, clearly under supernatural control. The Duergar bring one of the dwarf prisoners over to it, and the floating figure grabs the dwarf. Scanlan sees that this purple figure has tentacles on its face and a bald, smooth purple head, and he watches as the dwarf's brains are devoured. Scanlan gets back over to the party, and now they have enough information through Liam's vague memories of when he played several years earlier, and through some Arcana rolls, to identify this as a Mind Flayer or an Illithid. Based on the information Scanlan gives them, the party forms a plan. They make an illusion on the side with the bridge, draw the enemies towards them, and have some of the enemies fall to their doom into the ravine. It kinda works, but Vax's mind is briefly stunned by the Mind Flayer. He almost falls into the chasm before Tiberius saves him. In the aftermath, Vex and Keyleth want to go into the chasm under the bridge and investigate and see what's down there. The rest of the party does not agree, and they eventually outvote Vex and Keyleth, but Vex and Keyleth decide, you know what, we're gonna go do it anyway. They take the carpet and they fly down and they find a cave behind a waterfall. And in this cave, they find a single Illithid, sleeping in filth and rags, with a ramshackle metal skull cap protecting his brain from intrusion. This is Clarota, a Mind Flayer who seeks revenge, and who cautiously agrees to become allies with the party in order to get it. He was kicked out of his hive of Mind Flayers because he developed innate magical abilities. But he doesn't want to destroy the hive. Since he left, they have now been overtaken by this entity, Kavarn. But he is protected. He can't be infiltrated because he was disconnected from the hive, and because he has the skull cap to protect his mind. He wants to help the party destroy Kavarn in order to free his former hive. So, let's dig into the lessons. In the last episode, Matt dropped a bit of iconic lore by introducing the Intellect Devourer. In this episode, he went all in, and he gave the party their first look at a Mind Flayer. Scanlan gets to see the Mind Flayer in action, rendered in horrifying detail via this cinematic sequence, aka the cutscene. This is not the last villainous cutscene we will get on Critical Role. And honestly, this grip of episodes is a great sequence to display one of Matt's greatest strengths as a dungeon master. Matt Mercer is really good at delivering exposition in a dramatic way. It's sometimes hard to tell how much Matt prepares for what the party's going to see in sequences like this, like when Scanlan enters the Duergar camp. Some I think he writes in advance, others I think he freestyles or adapts from something that he wrote and prepared. But right now, that ultimately does not matter. Someday you'll want to improv a scene like this, and you can do that with enough practice, but right now, let's assume that it was pre-written. Because the most important thing isn't how he did it, but what he's actually doing. So let's look at the relevant information that Matt presents in this scene. He needs the party to know what they're up against. They need to know the major threats. The most relevant detail is this. We don't just see a Mind Flayer walking around, well, floating around. We see it active. We see it doing the thing it does. We see that the Mind Flayer has mental control over all the Duergar, as well as some of the more formidable enemies like the trolls and the ogres.
Now, you've encountered trolls before, but these trolls
Yeah, we
also have a similar pupilless, clouded over white eye appearance.
Slave trolls.
And both of these ogres also have the same pupilless, white glazed over look to their eyes. Form.
White eyes?
All the Duergar seem to have that natural look to their eyes as well.
Shit.
So, yeah.
Now, it's possible the Mind Flayer did not put them under the control itself. That may have been Kavarn, but that ultimately doesn't matter right now. What matters is the Mind Flayer is more powerful than anything else there because it commands them. We see that it freezes every other creature, aside from the dwarven captives, in the war camp.
As it does, the tall, lanky figure, which you now get this essence, it's not really walking, it's just kind of drifting. Holds its hand out, this long-fingered, lanky hand. And as it does, every single Duergar in the vicinity, wherever it was doing, stops in place, and all turn and look at it as one.
Whoa.
And then we see it put the dwarven prisoner into a trance.
The dwarf who's giving kind of a fight and looks nervous, looks over at the figure, and then just kind of his arms go limp to its side. And it begins to walk on its own volition.
So that's something the party needs to know. The party needs to know that the Mind Flayer can do that it can look at a prisoner, or, an adventurer, and stun them and make them unable to stop anything else from happening to them. And then, just like he did with the Intellect Devourer in the last episode, we see how this creature earned its name. We see the Mind Flayer feed.
As the tall, lanky creature reaches out with both hands and pulls the door forward, you see these terrible purple tentacles come writhing out of the front of the hood, wrapping around the head of the dwarf, pulling it into it. As the hood falls back, you see this horrible, smooth, purplish blue, hairless head. These sunken, yellowish green eyes as the tentacles wrap around the dwarf's head, pulls it into its mouth. And then there's a brief struggle, and then the dwarf's arms fall limp to its side.
And now the party understands the stakes. They know they will need to be extremely clever to take on this Duergar war camp, because they are dealing with a psychic enemy who is, for all intents and purposes, utterly alien. And of course, because some members of the party decided to explore the chasm, we are introduced to another Mind Flayer. And while I'm not 100% sure what Matt expected to happen, I don't know if he thought it would just be a fight or what, but at the very least, putting in Clarota the exiled Mind Flayer adds a lot of interesting detail. Even if the party had simply fought Clarota and killed him, they still could have learned a lot from his corpse. Perhaps even the inventors in the group, Percy and Tiberius, could have retrofitted the skull cap and used it as a way to grant themselves some sort of protection from the Mind Flayer attacks. Even if they'd only spoken to Clarota briefly as they fought or right before they fought, which again is very likely, Matt delivers a lot of great exposition through combat, they might have learned that the Mind Flayers have a hive mind, and that Clarota was cast out for being the equivalent of a sorcerer, which is not allowed or not looked upon well in Mind Flayer society. That could have given them something interesting to work with as well. Not trusting arcane magic could give the people who have arcane magic in the party, Tiberius and Scanlan, some way to use subterfuge to infiltrate or cause some chaos within the Mind Flayer civilization once they reach it. That could have been something they did a lot with. And of course, even if they fought him, they could have interrogated him just like they did with the Duergar. Doesn't mean they would have killed it right on sight. And then we could have gotten a sequence very similar to the one that opened the episode, but with an entire different perspective on what Mind Flayers are like. And whether Kavarn is like a really cool dude who's gonna help us take over the surface, hooray! Because the Duergar was drinking the Kool-Aid, and Clarota very much is not. But of course, they didn't kill him, did they? And now, not only do they have a useful source of information, which they'll get an info dump about in the next episode, that's 2 episodes in a row that Matt took a break right before getting a bunch of information from an NPC. That's a good trick too. If you're about to get a bunch of information from an NPC, that's a really good place to stop so you can prepare your notes. Another little tip. But not only that, not only do they have the source of information, they have an ally. Although Matt is very quick to remind them that this alliance is tenuous.
I wish to have your alliance.
Yes.
Help me free your hive mind. Free my people.
Sense motive.
Oh yeah. Can we sense motive on that?
You definitely can.
Look, the party trusts Clarota a lot, but you can't say Matt's not playing fair with them. Because yeah, the party puts a lot of faith in Clarota. By the end of this arc, they are going to really trust him. We can discuss that another time, though. Although, let's be completely fair here. Maybe they trust Clarota so much because they pity him. Or maybe they trust him because he's a really valuable source of information. Or maybe they trust him because they feel double-crossing him would mean fighting him and they don't want to do that. You know, considering what they know a Mind Flayer can do and also what they know, like, a Sorcerer can do. That seems like not a good combination. Feels like maybe that would be a tough fight. And honestly, I think the number one reason why they trust him is because they love that voice.
One, an alien one, has come and taken the mind hostage. It has taken my people as its own playthings.
It's a good voice. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Critical Role Demystified. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode and the lessons we can learn from it. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, make sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell and do the YouTube things. If you want to talk more about these things in the weeks in between, or about other things about D&D, or just like whatever, then come check out my Discord server. The link for that is in the doobly-doo. Thank you again for watching, and until next time, play fair and have fun.